Good morning, everybody. What's happening? Gonna try something a little different today. I've got the iPhone going, checking out a new app, and I did do a test last night, but I have no audio meters, so hopefully I'm actually gonna do a quick test, probably get a loop here, just make sure. Oh, there we go. All right, good. Let's turn that volume down. All right, we're good to go. Figured since I got about an hour, maybe 45 minutes before this session starts today, it'd be kind of fun just to do a chat, see what's going on with everybody, and do a little walkthrough of the setup we have going on here because it's kind of a cool one. Drummer Ken Schalk, any of you guys know Candiria, that band, holy crap, killer band, and Ken is an insane drummer. He hits so freaking hard that I feel sorry for the kid. Man, he just pummels it, but he gets such a cool sound. We've got some really neat sounds going for today, so I thought, man, this would be kind of cool before everybody shows up to just do kind of a walkthrough and see what everybody's up to. It's been kind of a crazy week here in the studio. A lot of things happening, some fun stuff. And let me get this computer going. This is weird not having everything going through the ATEM. Holy crap. Hopefully the audio is cool. Oh. No. There we go. Okay. Morning, Ricky. How you doing? Is it a good Sunday morning? Hopefully it is. It's finally beautiful here. It's perfect weather to stay in for the weekend doing drum sessions. We took a bunch of breaks yesterday just to go outside and sit outside for a few minutes, which was kind of nice. So Ken's been working on his album for his new project called Sensory Deception. And it's some really cool stuff. I mean, I think it's going to be heavy. It's going to be... I know they're going to have some cool vocalists on this thing. I think it's going to be a really cool album when they get it out. And we've had a good time tracking all the drums. Tracking Ken is a different experience than tracking other drummers. If you saw the short that I put up yesterday, like 20 seconds or something like that, it's through the glass and I have some gobos, but you can see his hands most of the time are above his head. Everything comes from here. And he just pummels the kit. But it sounds so good. He's still really controlled. He's a loose drummer, so he can hit a kit that hard and it doesn't just completely choke out the drums. Plus the toms are, I'm going to do a walk through the live room here in a minute. The toms are quite large and deep, and the floor tom is huge, so that helps out a lot too. And he's using 2-ply heads. Who we got going? Audio's a little low. Okay, hold on. This is all set up for the switch. Let me see if I can get the audio a little louder. I'm on the iPhone because oh, that wasn't what I wanted to hit. Let's see, receiver gain. Let's go up a little. See if that, wait, why did I go plus 10? All right, I gotta do this. I can't see the thing. Oh, there we go. All right, let's see if that's any better. I'm using the phone. I'm trying out this app, Prism Live, I think is what it is, to do some, down and dirty quick live streaming, especially like today when I don't have time to set up the whole switch and the room's it's a train wreck with drums and microphones. So let me know if that audio's any better. Hopefully it is. It's not very often someone says, okay, cool, excellent. It's not very often I get told to be louder. Most of the time people are like, do you have a mute button? How you've got involved. Oh, the Audio-Technica videos. That all started back in the the old studio, when I did full-on drums with my partner Scott Francisco. And if you guys haven't seen Full on Drums, go check that out. All the YouTube videos are still up there, even though we haven't done anything in a decade, because we both got busy with other things. But it started when we started that at Scott's studio in Burbank, and then my old studio down in Hollywood. And Scott was always a huge Audio-Technica user. Loved them. Has tons of the old ATM 25s, all the 4050s. He had everything, and he would always bring those mics over. So when we started Full on Drums, we were reaching out to different companies to get gear to use to record with, because that's what the show was all about, recording drums. And since Scott was such a huge Audio-Technica fan, I believe we went and spoke with them at NAMM, and they sent us some stuff to use, and then we augmented that with Scott's extensive Audio-Technica mic locker. And excuse me, this whole breathing thing is new. And they liked the videos, so that's when I got my first pair of 4080s. They gave me those, which was awesome. And it wasn't too long. That was towards the end of the run at the Hollywood studio. And then when just after I built this place, like in that first year, they reached out to us to do some training videos of some sort. And so we had a few meetings with them and went back and forth, and finally, figured out what they wanted. And we actually went through and scripted every single one of those videos. We have a binder like this thick of all the scripts. So all of that stuff that we shot was completely pre-planned. But that all came about because of Full on Drums. We did the stuff with them there. We got to know them there. Scott was already a huge Audio-Technica fan. I was very unfamiliar. That kind of got me into it at that point, which now I have tons of Audio-Technica here as well. But that's how that whole thing started. What else? No, Ernesto is simply out of town right now. He'll be back in a couple weeks. And we had the Roswell thing, so my buddy Austin was helping me out with the switch and getting the camera set up and everything. So he'll be around. He's getting a break from me. So, okay, so everybody hear me fine? We good? Excellent. So today, let's get to the fun part. I am on the iPhone and I'm on my gimbal. I have the gimbal plugged in because the battery on this doesn't last as long as I would like it. I'm going to walk around a bit here, so we'll see how long that lasts. I may have to go handheld. I don't know. And we're going to take a look at the setup that we have for Ken's sessions. I don't know, maybe later I'll try to talk him into doing some quick live thing or something. I don't know. We'll see. He's got a lot to do today. Got two really, not too long a days, but, when you're tracking so many drums, you got to get busy. So let's go take a look. I'm going to unplug this thing. Let's do a little walk through here. I'm going to start with the console. And let me flip this camera around. Boom. We have a lot set up. There is a ton. And these are actually, this is the kick bus, snare bus. And then they're not labeled because we did this at the end of the day, but you'll see the setup. I'm actually using all but one channel on the console for these sessions. So 3 kick mics, the first 2 getting summed to bus 1 over there. The same with the snare top, there's the condenser and the dynamic, that's all getting summed over here to the bus and going in as one channel. But we have a few sets of rooms. We've got a mono room, the normal Audio-Technicas, the wide rooms, and then I'm splitting those, which I'll show you in a second, and we're crushing the crap out of them. But surprisingly, there's not a lot happening. You can see there's not a lot of inserts on, just the inserts up here, and this right here is the ribbons with getting a little overstayer, and these are the crushed wide rooms, which are getting hit with the dynamites, and a little bit of EQ, but not a ton of extra processing going on for all this, which was kind of cool. I'm actually pushing the board a lot harder, so the first 16 channels with the input transformers, I'm running most everything up to most of it's tickling the red and some of it's just flat out in the red. So I'm using the board more as my like dynamics processor than actually a bunch of outboard gear. And then Ken is ridiculously consistent. I mean, he's machine-like consistent with his hitting. So whatever, I mean, the dynamite, we already knew from past sessions that we liked that extra set of crushed rooms to blend in with the other rooms. So that's mostly like taste choices and extra choices, but you don't have, with a drummer like him, you don't have to do any fix-it compression, or you're not trying to control the dynamics. He does all that, the heavy lifting on that. So let's go. Hopefully the white balance on this stays all right. Oop, a little bright there. Let's take a look here. Go to the other. Here's what we have set up. So Ken has a pretty unique kind of setup here. Let me get out here in the front. This is the best part of the setup right here. Look at that. And that is Animal Ain't Got Shit on Ken Schalk. So he kind of sets up like a double bass drummer actually, and we have it spun in the room just to get the kick going forward. And we are using a different kick than he has in the past. Just he wanted a different sound, so he experimented with some of my gear to augment his, and we found exactly the tone he was looking for. We'll just start with that. So down with the RE20. The RE20 and the black Roswell are getting summed to 1, and the 4047 is technically the outside kick mic. Hold on one second. And then you can see this. Oh, this is one thing I love about this setup. Look how much room there is for the snare mics. They fit right between these two toms. Look how far away the cymbals are. It's perfect. It was so easy to fit those in here. Oh, going to the wrong side. Used to this damn app. All right, there we go. Let's go around over here. So most of the toms, the big toms, and it's a 14-inch rack. Matter of fact, later I'll do an interview with him and I'll let him run through all of this stuff so he can tell you exactly what he's got going here. But on the bigger drums, I went with the S25s. The small little guy right here, I put the Audio-Technica AE3000. Has a nice snap to it. Going with the Heil on the hi-hats, because we got the good old Peisties. I do have a couple accent mics, which I don't do very often, but this little splash I did not want to get lost over here. And there is, let's see if we can see it, I do have a mic up underneath the ride as well. And those are really like kind of spot mic placement mics in the mix, more so than actual, that's the actual tone. Go back. So overheads, doing a space pair, and they are, let me see if I can get an angle here so you can really see. It's kind of hard with the phone, man. So this time I'm in a more traditional left and right overhead. So this Delphos 2 is pretty much over where this cymbal is. And that Delphos 2 is actually kind of over, here, let me see if I get it right here. See, there's the mic, and if I pan down, it's actually kind of splitting these two, and it's far enough away that any cymbal movement this way, and you can see there's not actually a lot, but any of that cymbal movement is not pushing air back up into the mic, so you don't get that kind of phasey, washy thing happening when you get a cymbal that's moving, the edge of a cymbal moving too close to a microphone. And then the third mic is the Audio-Technica AT4081 ribbon mic. And the snare sound from that mic alone and the punch of the toms is insane. All three mics are in phase. We triple checked all that stuff to make sure it was good before we started, and it works really, really well. And that's the main kit setup. I'm gonna spin around here. Rooms, 4081s and a Blumline. And then there's a mono 4047 down here a little bit lower. And that adds a lot of extra, some thump to the kick. And it actually helped the body of the snare quite a bit as well too. And then out in the corners, you can see over here, and then over here, have a pair of Delphos 1s, and they are in Omni. And that's the wide room mics. That is, here, I'm gonna flip this down. That's there's a pair of, or they're going to a pair of channels clean, nothing on them whatsoever. So there's just a room sound that you can bring up. And then I'm splitting them, well here, I'll show you that in a second, down here before it goes in the patch panel. And then that goes to another pair of channels, and that's getting hit with the dynamites and getting blown up. The cool thing about doing it that way is you have a set of room mics that has all the punch and the transient, and then you can just blend in those that crushed pair, and you can kind of control your punch to crazy room sound that way, and it actually works out really well. It's kind of cool. So let me show you that. So the patch panel's full, really full, and I'm just using my ART splitter. You can see going 2 in the front, coming out the back, and that's how I'm splitting that signal before it goes into the patch panel. So I'm not doing it in the patch bay. I'm not doing it off the auxes. It's going right from here, so there's no phase issues whatsoever. It's too early. I need more coffee. All right, this setup. There's a 4050 right here, stereo 4050, and I actually had this in front of the kit also for the second song yesterday. Oh, Miss Delilah, you going to join us now? There we go. The studio manager's here. So at the end of yesterday, we did some snare work, which we did on one of his last songs as well too, where Ken, myself, and Jason, we all got out and played this snare line in this one part of this song. Let me go over here. So this was a real simple setup. Went D1000Es on these 2 snares right here, and a good old 57 on that final snare. They're all a little bit of space, so it's not too close mic'd. And then out here, swivel around, you can see the single Audio Technica 4050 stereo. It's technically 2 mics because it's stereo. And that's the setup that we're using for the weekend. Today is kind of fun, and I'm going to try to get some more video later in the day. And I know Ken's been taking a bunch of video too. We've been joking about how much social media crap we got to get while we're trying to actually record the music. I think the joke yesterday was, we don't actually make music, we just shoot social media videos about us making music. But we'll get some today because he's got one epic long tune that he's doing that I think when he got done with the session last night, he still had to go finish prepping that. And then we're going to pull out a bunch of toms and do something crazy. So I'm sure we're going to get a bunch of video of that as well. I'm going to go back in the control room, put this thing down for a second so I can talk. And that's our setup. It's pretty cool. It's a lot. It's not all, you could say some of it's a little bit overkill, but I wanted to make sure, and Ken did too, that he had a lot of options when mixing. He's a pretty creative dude, and they like to do a lot of fun stuff when they mix. So let me get you up there. So a lot of the room mics are really just choices they can make later down the road. Like maybe he just likes one pair, maybe they use different pairs. This time he wanted the mono, because we didn't do a mono room in the last couple sessions with him, but this time he's like, hey, is there like a spot in the room that we can just get a cool mono thing that just adds to the kit? We tried a couple different microphones. The 4047 seemed to work best, and that did add something to the kick and the snare especially. Even though it's far away, it doesn't sound roomy. You know, and then the other room mics are really just, you know, aesthetic choices. There's enough air in the room, and he's hitting hard enough that even without the room mics, and I have the overheads a little bit higher than I normally do. One, because you just can't get them that close to Ken. One stick's always going up here by his head. But it also allows a little bit more of the room sound itself to get in the overheads, which is why I've got the baffles on each side of the kit, just to focus just a little bit. Let's see. Regal Beagle in the house. What is happening? You get phase issues if you split a mic signal off a patch bay. Well, not necessarily. I mean, none of these runs are really that long. So if I ran it into the patch bay and I split it there, it's going maybe an extra, 15 feet, which is absolutely nothing on a balanced line. The downside of that is you're your levels are a little bit different when you split the mic signal coming in before it's being amplified, or it's not transformer balanced either. It's literally just splitting the signal. So you could have impedance drops, that sort of thing. I've done it before with no problem, and if there was a drop in anything, I couldn't tell. But doing it in the live room just makes it a little bit easier. I always leave that ARTs, it's always sitting by that panel basically, because 99% of the time I'm splitting the signal, it's right there. So I just leave it there so I can plug it in. It's transformer balanced, it's completely isolated. I don't have any problems with it that way. But I mean, when you're talking short runs, you shouldn't, in the analog domain with something like that, you shouldn't see any phase issues when splitting it that way. Because mixing, I'll do it off the console all the time when you do something off an aux send somewhere else and then bring it back to the board. You know, parallel compression works that way. And, you know, I mean, if I was running it, 300-400 feet, yeah, maybe then at that point you would, but not for this short run that's here in the studio, or in most studios for that matter. TV station, booth, engineer setting. Yeah, you know, one thing I love about the Audio-Technica stuff is I don't think they really get enough love for some reason, but they always work. They make a ton of great sounding mics. They're built like a tank, and they just always work. I mean, the 4050 is a hard mic to beat, especially at the price it's at. It's a multi-pattern mic with a pad on it. The thing sounds fantastic. I like the 4047. It's great. And actually lately my overheads, I've been going back and forth between the Delphos 2 and the 4050, and it all depends on the type of drummer. You know, volume has a big deal with it, and then the type of cymbals. In this case, I went with the Delphos 2 because they're really smooth on the top end. So those Pisces, especially the Rude and the signatures, when Ken's just annihilating those cymbals, those signatures have a real specific mid-range and a bite. They can come out. And with the Delphos 2, smooth as butter. And that's pretty much my decision. The snare line looks... Oh yeah, the snare. Well, Ken, the part that we did that on is like a middle section, like a long bridge, and he has... the only tracks that I'm hearing that we're tracking to are some guitars that he recorded, so they've got all the stuff to put on it, so I don't know what more arrangement-wise is going on there. But right now, that snare line is this, I'm going to give too much away here, but you're not hearing anything, so it doesn't matter, is this cool over-the-bar line thing that's exactly the same line for the entirety of this bridge. And then there's another drum part and a guitar part that I've heard that goes over it, and I'm pretty sure there's some other layers that he has yet to record. And it's going to kind of just be this background kind of marching kind of thing that goes in the background. Sean, what's happening? 44, love the 4047s, about to possibly buy some Loudons for spot mics. Nice. I haven't used any of those yet. You know, that's all I have not. I'm actually interested in checking out some of the Austrian audio stuff, though. That is definitely on my list, as well as a couple Beyer mics, the Beyer Dynamics that I'm hoping to get in. So it's easier for me to see comments and stuff over on this computer, which is why I keep looking this way. Trying to do this on the phone is a little bit different. Did I miss anything? Yeah, you know, there's a lot of Audio-Technica in the live world, especially. 4047 is one of my favorite mics. As far as Audio-Technica goes, on their end, that's like a desert island mic for me. If you gave that to me and said, look, the only thing you get for the rest of your life is a 4047 and that's it, I'd be like, okay. That's kind of like with Roswell, it's the Delphos. If you said, or the Delphos 2, you came to me and said, the only mic you're going to get is a Delphos 2 and that's it, I'd be okay, I can totally do that. Those mics are just workhorse, do-it-all well microphones and handle a ton of SPL, which is really cool. Got the multi-pattern with the plug. Sean, what multi-pattern? Well, with the plug-in, which one is that? I'm not familiar with that one. So many microphones. And the reality of it is, if I never got another microphone from here until the day I stop recording, I'd be totally okay. I don't really need more, but where's the fun in that? You know, where's the fun in that? So what time is it? 10:41. How's my battery doing? Holy crap, it's actually holding up pretty well. The gimbal's not doing too bad. These things tend to die a little quickly, especially when I have it telescoped. Next time you talk to the Roswell guy, ask him if he plans on doing a ribbon. You know, I have asked that multiple times, and I don't have a definitive answer. I doubt there's one in the works at this point, but I keep trying to talk him into it. So I'll keep pushing. Well, speaking of ribbon mics, this made me think of something else. I'm actually in the works trying to set up a time. I'm going to get Peterson Goodwin from DIY Recording to come on and be a guest on one of the console side chats and talk about all the stuff they have going in the color format. They have a DIY ribbon mic. Maybe I should get one of those and build that and see how that works. Because I love ribbons. That's one of the buyers that's on my list too, that I'm hopefully going to talk to my zZounds friends and get them to send one of the M160s over and one of the M201s, and try some of that stuff out too, because I know I've used those 160s before and absolutely love them. But I did realize one thing yesterday when we set up and we were just listening back to our initial sounds, and we pulled up that the mono overhead mic, that 4081, is I realized I need two of them because the tone on the drums were so cool. I would love to actually put, like right where the Delphos are wide, I'd like to put those ribbons right next to it and have that option to go with the ribbon stereo or the Delphos 2 stereo. That would be cool. The 4081 has become a mic we've used a lot more, and even Ernesto has liked it. We go to do guitars, and I'm like, you pick the mic, whatever sound you're hearing. Goes, well, what about that ribbon mic? So we've used that quite a bit, and I don't know if you guys have this sometimes, where once you get a certain amount of gear and you have a lot of choices, right? And but you're working a lot. You start going to some of the same choices all the time. Things that you know work, which is totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But then you have some mics that start gathering dust on the shelf a little bit, and you just, for one reason or another, or for no reason at all, they don't get used that much. And then one day you're like, man, well, there's that mic on the shelf right there. I haven't used that in, a year, 2 years, 5 years. Let's just try it out today. And all of a sudden you put on a guitar, you put on an overhead or whatever, and you're like, holy crap, this thing sounds fantastic. Why have I not been using this? And then that becomes what you use all the time for a while. I've had that happen multiple times in the last year or so where for one reason or another, I didn't use a mic for a long, long time and then just decided one day, no, we're going to use that today, and went, why haven't I been using this? And with the deal like this with Ken, we have so many freaking mics set up. It's like all the mics are out there. Using 31 channels on the console. It's insane. It's crazy. The OC818, I believe, has a remote control. Okay, I'll check that out. I haven't seen that. Yeah, the experimenting, Ricky, I love the experimenting part two. Part two, not as in part two. I love the experimenting part as well. And Ken does too, because even before the second song, I was like, man, I'd like to set one more mic up in front of the kit and do something, if you don't mind. He was like, dude, if it's experimenting, I'm all down. Ken loves that. The cool thing here is this kit, and I'm going to do an interview with him, so I'm going to let him walk through the kit, because he'll do that more justice than I will right now. But those Tama toms, he's a Tama guy. They sound really nice, and that 14 rack is deep, and the floor tom is a 16 by 16, and I think the left one's a 14 by 14. And he's using the Evans UV2 heads on there, and it has just this really thick, almost smoky character to it. So the drums coming out into the room have a unique vibe on their own, which is why I'm not actually doing a ton here to try to manipulate that. I'm just trying to add to it, and I love that. And then just way too many microphones, because that's what we do on these sessions. And they are definitely not all meant to be used at the same time. Although I guess you could, no rules against that. Studio Fluff, what's happening? How you guys doing? It's early today. It's 10:45 in the morning here. I need coffee. I have not had enough coffee to get my day going. Luckily, I got about half an hour before Ken and Jason show up, so Chipotle. Oh, How? When are you coming to town, man? We got to do some videos. You're going to be here soon, right? Or are you coming right before NAMM? Who's coming to NAMM? I'm only going to be there on Saturday, so if anybody's going to be there on Saturday, let me know. Let's grab some coffee. 8 p.m. in Sweden. Yeah, see, it's a little bit better this time than when we stream later in the afternoon. When stream, I'd make it what? About midnight-ish? That's not too bad. We're studio people. We're late night people, right? You can't see the speaker in the cabin because of all the mics on it. I did some reamping also over the weekend, and I kind of had the case. I was experimenting with a bunch of mics, and I had way more mics on a guitar cab than I should. Oh, that's something that I cannot wait. The Necronomicon Ex Mortis, when that next round of songs comes out, the guitar tones that we got for that stuff is some of the coolest tones that I've recorded with them so far. Just absolutely brutal. And I had to buy another guitar pedal, the Plumes, because Manuel had that running into the Marshall, and I was like, oh man, that OD pedal is so cool. So guess what? That went on the list. Had to get that. Yes, console talk about midnight. Sean in the Midwest, the frosty Midwest, yeah. Is it cold still there? We can see snow on the mountains right here from the studio. Walk out the front door and the mountains, it's a strange sight. But I'm not complaining, it's gonna be hot as hell here soon enough. So, all right. Well, I have about 10 drums I need to pull out and prep for this thing that Ken wants to do today and see what condition the heads are in. So I'm gonna go get ready to do that. Unless anybody has any other questions. I kind of like this early morning, just real loose hang is kind of cool. I need some help. What's wrong with the Toft? What's going on? I had a Toft, I don't know if you guys know that, before the Trident went in, which was pretty cool. What's up? Okay, we got more people. I'm going to hang for a bit. The new chicken. Hal, yes, I did try the new chicken from Chipotle. It's kind of barbecue style and a little spicy. I did not mind it. Not bad at all. Printing. Desperate. Okay, so 240 hertz. What do you mean printing? What are you trying to do? Come out the main outs. Are you asking if it should come out the main outs? So if I was going to print stems, go back and yeah, to go back. Oh, so you're going back into your I/O back into Pro Tools. Yeah, okay. So yeah, here's the way I used to do it before I did the second print machine. I would take the main outs of the console. That would get fed to the whatever my mix bus was at the time. I don't think I had the C1 then, but whatever compressor I was using, an EQ. The main outs would go to that compressor and that EQ, and then that would come back directly into 2 channels on my I/O. It wouldn't come back to the board. It would go directly into 2 open channels on the I/O, and those 2 channels of the I/O would be coming out of, so let's just say for argument's sake, we were using 22 tracks, with 2 open. You go out the main outs through whatever hardware you want to use. Maybe you're not using any. Doesn't really matter. It's going to end up in the same spot. But let's say you go through your whatever compressor, comes out of that. You come back into the I/O, say 23 and 24, straight in the I/O. And then you could send that channel in Pro Tools back out 2 additional open channels. This is if you want to monitor it and have that be on your 2-track. That way you could just turn the 2-track on, monitor your print channel only so you know exactly what's getting printed. If you don't have the ability to do that, just monitor. Well, if you're going to use outboard hardware, you really should have some way of monitoring that. If you're just coming out the main outs of the Toft, which maybe you are, I also have a stereo bus. So you are going to some stereo bus, no patch bay. Mine was always in the patch bay. So I always patched in from the output of the top Trident. It's all in the patch bay. So I would take the patch of the main out and patch that into 2 channels on my interface. If you don't have a patch bay, you just have to hardwire it, you know. And if that's all you ever use the main outs for, you could hardwire that into 2 channels on your I/O and just leave it there. And all you do is you throw up that master fader, and it's going right to those 2 channels. So no different. Patch into a stereo compressor. Yeah, it's no different. You go out to your stereo compressor, it comes out the outs of that compressor. It's got to get back into the computer. So at that point, you're patching back into 2 channels on your I/O. At that point, it's really important that you can, or I would highly recommend that you be able to monitor that sound that you're printing, because you really need to hear what the compressor's doing anyway, right? So whatever channels that you're running to in Pro Tools has to be coming out 2 additional channels, another stereo channels, that you can then monitor. And if you have 2 extra ones open, I would just have those go right to the 2. I think the top has a 2-track. That way you can just turn the 2-track on the board, and it's monitoring those 2 channels automatically, so you shouldn't get any of that, you know, the weird phase or the, you know, hearing the delay and what's going on. I mean, you shouldn't get a ground loop doing that. There's no, oh, you're getting a hum. Oh, welcome to the world of figuring that out. I used to use crossfader for analog gear. Yeah, that could work too, actually. The last thing is a hum. Have you tried not using the compressor and just going out of the stereo outs directly into your I/O? Print it, see what happens. Then go out of your master out into the compressor, out of the compressor back into your I/O, and see if you still have the hum. Have you done that? Try that first. I mean, here's the thing with any hums, ground loops, it's all about taking things out of that signal chain to find out what is causing it. If you have a ton of gear, that process is absolutely, or can absolutely be maddening. I had to do that here. We spent like a month trying to chase down a couple ground loops, and ask Ernesto, it's like every day it was driving me nuts. I'm calling him going, this just isn't working. And it took us a while to figure it out. If you only have a couple pieces of gear in that signal chain, it's a lot easier. Just start removing them, or go down to the most basic setup, which in your case would be master outs of the top, back into Pro Tools. Print just a little piece, see if you're getting the hum. Well, before you try, yeah, Sean, I mean, that's definitely a possibility, but before you add something else into the line to try to fix an issue, you have to identify exactly what the issue is first. So take out everything and do the bare minimum. Master outs of the top into Pro Tools. Is there a hum? If there's a hum, in that case, it's something that's happening at the console itself, possibly. So do that first. Studio Fluff, use the Motu 24 I/O, and I monitor through the Motu Q-Mix to the 2-track. Never go to the print unless I am printing the mix. So when tracking and mixing, it never hits the DAW and back. I'm monitoring out of my 24 I/O. My 2-track is all wired in the patch bay. So I'm kind of similar to that, but when I'm tracking, I can hit the 2-track button, and if I have the Apogee in analog mode, I can actually monitor while we're tracking through the mix bus, through the C1, the Rupert Neves, and the Ultraviolet, which is actually kind of cool because you can kick it on. You got this killer sound while you're tracking. And then when I go to mix, I just flip the Apogee to digital. But it doesn't ever have to hit the DAW until I'm printing a mix. So it's kind of similar in that way, which is nice. Nothing wrong with my mixer. I mean, I can't. That's hard for me to say that without actually being there and you know, sitting with you on that thing. But first, before that, take all that out when you're printing and see what's happening. If anything changes when you're just going straight out of the master outs, and maybe even console that's creating an issue. But do it master outs with nothing else going on the board. Pull all the faders up. See if you have something happening then. Just master outs back to DAW, and then see if you also have the hum then, and try to eliminate. It's a process of an elimination, and it can be kind of maddening. 240 hertz, thank you. Very much appreciated. Very much appreciated. Uh-oh, I'm getting an error from YouTube saying I'm not. So I don't know. I'm getting an error notice from YouTube, so I have no idea if I've lost some signal from the phone here, but I've got to get rolling anyway. It's 10:57, and these guys are going to be here shortly, and I've got to pull some drums out. But thanks for joining me on this, well, early morning for me anyway, or I consider it early morning. It's before noon. And I'll let you know some times of the next console side chats. Peterson Goodwin, locking a date down with him. We're going to talk all things DIY, color format, all that cool stuff they make, and which I absolutely love. Still working on a couple other ones. Ernesto will be back. We're going to do some recording. I'm waiting for How to get to town because we're going to do some videos. I'm going to commandeer him for a couple days. We're going to do some videos around NAMM time. And that's it, everybody. Have a fantastic Sunday. And we will see y'all real soon. Take care, everybody. Now, where do you end on this thing? Probably should have looked at that before I did this.